Hello, hello, hello. Hi, everyone. Good evening. Good afternoon, wherever you are joining us from. My name is Sharan Thaimade. I represent Seed Global Education. It is evening here in India. We've got friends joining in from different parts of the world. We've got two wonderful people who have joined us from New York City, representing the NYU Tandon School of Engineering. In today's masterclass, we're going to cover a little bit about navigating the US job search process, understand a little bit about some of the STEM programs that you can consider. We'll understand a little bit about this concept of CPT and OPT, and we'll try and also gain some understanding of what your career could look like if you decide to pursue your master's in the USA. Before we begin, I'd like to understand from the audience which city you are joining in from. If you can open the chat and just type in which city you are joining in from, that will help our wonderful panelists understand where are some of you joining in from. Aryan's coming from Pune, New Delhi, Himanshu from Nashik in Maharashtra. We've got people here from Lagos, Nigeria, Ahmedabad, Nasik, Ghana as well, Jammu, again, Kumasi, wonderful places all across West Africa and India. We can hear from different parts of India. We've got Hanan here from Islamabad, Pakistan. Welcome. In Madhya Pradesh, Ghana, India. Wonderful. So, for the panelists here, we've got folks here from India, from the Indian subcontinent. We've got some folks here from Pakistan as well. And we've got a very large chunk here from Ghana and Nigeria as well, which is where we do a lot of work with NYU as well. A lot of wonderful things that we can expect. We're just waiting for a few more people to join. We're already hit the 186 people, 188 people mark. So we are closer to 200 people. We have Ebenezer here from Ghana as well. Welcome. Let the chat keep flowing on where you are joining us from. Our panelists are scrolling and seeing which part of the world a lot of you are joining in from. That is really exciting to host. And for the next 1 hour or so, we'll learn a little bit about navigating the US job search process. We have a couple of poll questions, and you'll see a poll on your screen very, very quickly. The first poll question is on your screen right now. What industry are you planning to build your career in? We do talk about a lot of STEM designated programs, that are in the US and NYU, the overall university and the School of Engineering, the Tandon School of Engineering has quite a few programs, and New York as a city, US as a country has a lot of opportunities in internet and software, financial services, higher education as well, investment banking, electronic computer hardware, healthcare, commercial banking and credit, accounting, investment, and portfolio management. So a lot of different opportunities. What are some of your focus areas and where you want to build your career? We've got 206 of you that are here, and we've got around 30% of you that have filled this. We are waiting for some more people. If you cannot see it on your screen, click on the poll button on your mobile phones or iPads. If you're on your desktop, you can see it on your screen. If not, look for the poll button and try and give us an understanding of what industry are you planning to build your career in. We've got close to 35% of you that have responded. So thank you so much for that, and welcome to the people who've just joined. We've hit the 220 people mark. I'm going to close this poll question and just share this with our panelists and for each of us to understand that we have a very large percentage of students, close to 7% of you, 37% of you for starters are looking at internet and software, and there is a different chunk in financial services, higher education, electronics and computer hardware, as well takes more than 10%. So it is a mixed bag. Internet software is leading the way, and we'll talk a little bit about some of those job opportunities that NYU students have received, in the last few years, through the NYU Tandon Career Hub. Before we move and we start learning about the process, I'd like to quickly introduce our two panel members. We've got Candice Lamb, who represents the NYU Tandon Career Hub, and I'm going to quickly talk to you a little bit about Candice. Candice has been with NYU for a decent amount of time. She is the director of the Tandon Career Hub in the Office of Student Life and Services. She's got, professional background in career services, particularly with STEM students and first generation student success as well. She's passionate about professional development and career success for first gen students, students of color, women in STEM, LGBTQ plus students, and international students as well. Prior to NYU, she's been with the Career Skills Academy at the CUNY School of Public Health and Policy, which focused on professional skills and development for underrepresented student population. She's a PhD in educational leadership and policy from the University of Texas, Austin, and a Master's of Education from University of Louisville, a degree in nonprofit administration at the University of South Carolina, upstate. She loves traveling, memoirs, and loves having experiences in New York City. New York City is where each of you might consider pursuing your master's program in, and Candice will be a great person for you to chat with and learn a little more. We also have Carrie. Carrie is the senior assistant director for graduate and admissions for the NYU Tandon. She's also traveling to India very soon. She's the one that talks to prospective students about their career opportunities of pursuing a master's program at NYU School, Tandon School of Engineering. So she's going to be sharing some thoughts about why you should consider studying at NYU a little later. So over the next 30 minutes, we'll hear from Candice. Candice, over to you. Firstly, thank you so much. Welcome to this session, and thank you so much for taking us through a little bit of the NYU Tandon Career Hub. Over to you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. And thank you for that lovely introduction. I am so happy to be here today. As mentioned, one of my big interests and passion is working with international students. We have a very large international student population here at Tandon, and it is such a pleasure to work with international students, particularly on navigating the U.S. job search and understanding some of the ins and outs of the U.S. job search and providing resources to students. And so, with that, I am going to talk a little bit today about navigating the U.S. job search. So it looks like you should be able to see my my screen now. Oh, it's saying your screen sharing is paused. That's one moment. Let me figure out what's going on here. Okay, stop share. Okay, every time I try to share my screen, it's saying the screen sharing is paused. So just a second, let me see if this will fix it.
Yes, we can see your screen, but we can't really see the
Okay,
presentation yet.
sure. Let me try again. Okay,
Perfect.
there we go. So that should work. Okay, every time I try to make the screen bigger, it is saying the screen sharing pauses. So one second while I figure out why this is happening.
Right. So just as we wait for Candice to figure this out, we'll just learn a little bit from Carrie. Carrie, you are traveling to India. Could you throw some light on which cities, etc., you are traveling to India from, to, and what is your plan when you come to India?
Yeah, thanks. So yes, I will be actually flying out this Friday, and I will be in India for the next 2 weeks. So from September 16th all the way through the 27th. I will be going to Delhi. I will be going to Hyderabad, and I believe Bangalore as well. I can't remember now. I think we switched some things around, and Kanpur. I'm trying to think of the other ones that we're going to. We're going to several different places. We will be visiting multiple schools while I'm there in each of those locations and nearby locations. So if you see that Seed Global Education is coming to your institution over those few days, come by, say hello. I will be there with other colleagues from other U.S. institutions, not just NYU, to speak to students, answer your questions about the application processes, things like that. And also you can just meet me one-on-one and ask me questions individually. So feel free to, make yourself known if you are in the area. I would love to speak with you one-on-one.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Carrie. I believe Candice will be ready with the presentation right now. Thank you.
Yes, Carrie, thank you so much. That sounds so exciting. I love hearing students talk about their experiences in India and where they're from. So, it must be really, really exciting to be able to actually go and see the places that the students talk about. So now we'll go from talking about India to talking about how to navigate the US job search. Again, I am Dr. Candice Lamb. I am the director of the Tandon Career Hub. And so I work one-on-one and in group presentations and group advising with NYU students. And so today we'll talk a bit about information on the Career Hub and how the Career Hub may help you in your journey, some job search etiquette, how to apply for positions, the importance of networking, some do's and don'ts of the job search, and how to navigate this landscape. And then towards the end, we will just have questions in case you have any questions. And so just so that you know, the Tandon Career Hub is a career resource tailored for Tandon students at NYU. NYU students are very lucky in that, specifically at Tandon, there are actually 2 career offices that students can take advantage of. And so one is the Wasserman Center, which is an NYU-wide resource. It's a very large career center for all NYU students. And then we have the Tandon Career Hub, which is an office that is specifically tailored for Tandon students, which means that when we're giving you advice or helping you with your interviews or resume reviews, this is work that we do exclusively for and with engineering students. So we are a resource that is specialized for Tandon students. Something important to know is that, in many places, career and job search happen through referrals or through replacements. We do not place students in internships or jobs. That is not the role of the Career Hub. Instead, we are there to help support you and guide you and be a resource for you as you figure out what you want to do, what kind of organization you might want to work for. We help you navigate getting your materials ready for the job search, networking, interviewing. We provide opportunities for you to meet with employers. Some of that is done through collaboration. As I mentioned earlier, we collaborate with the Wasserman Center. So this year we are hosting a large career fair called the Careers in STEM Fair with the Wasserman Center. We also collaborate with academic advisors, faculty members, other offices across campus, like student leaderships for if you're interested in student organizations. We collaborate many times with employers, alumni, and many other partners. And we are located right on the Tandon campus in Brooklyn at 2 Metro Tech. So we're going to talk a little bit about the job search and what the job search might look like in the United States, specifically as an engineering student, a student in STEM or the tech industry. And so some job search etiquette to consider. One is to be respectful of boundaries. Sometimes when you're applying for a position, it will say, no emails or no calls. You should always be respectful of that. When you apply for a position, obviously you want to put forth the best presentation of yourself as possible. So you want to make sure that you follow their exact rules for how to apply for their positions. I would suggest that if you have not heard from the organization within maybe 2 weeks of applying, that you may then send an email to the recruiters or the human resources department to check in. A question that I've had, and so, I mentioned earlier we would discuss some do's and don'ts. One question that I sometimes have from students is it okay to stop by the company? If I'm applying for a job at a tech company in Brooklyn, is it okay to stop by because it's near where I live? No, you always want to show that you are respectful of their time and boundaries. And so I suggest being kind and courteous in your communication, making sure that you say please and thank you, showing patience and respecting the process. We meet with a lot of recruiters and employers, and we ask them, how can our students stand out for you? And one thing that we hear is, please tell them to respect the process. I have had recruiters say to me, I posted a position and got 500 applications and resumes, and I am the person who has to review all of them. So please make sure to let your students know that we are reviewing them, but that they need to be patient and respect that process. Something else is avoid getting too personal or too familiar in your conversations. You want to show that you are collegial and that you will be a good colleague, but you don't want to be too personal. So, an example would be, I had a student last year ask, when they're interviewing, if they're asked to interview questions, is it appropriate, if they're asked if they have questions, is it appropriate to say, when can I start? And so you don't want to be too presumptive and make assumptions that you have the position. Instead, you want to showcase that you have a genuine interest in the role, a genuine interest in the company, but wait for those questions that might be a bit too familiar until you've been offered the position. And so as you're applying, the most important thing to do is organize your search. Keep track of the positions that you apply for. I suggest having an Excel spreadsheet in which you keep track of when you applied. You can keep a link to the position so that you remember what type of position or what the position description was. But I would also suggest that you actually copy and paste the position description into that spreadsheet, because sometimes the link is removed and you don't realize it. And then if you're invited for an interview, if you've applied for 30 jobs, you may not remember the specific job description. And so keep track of that specific job description. I suggest having headings that focus on the date you applied. If you followed up via email to check on your application, the date that you checked on your application, what the recruiter's name is or what the hiring manager's name is, the date that you had your first interview, a note showcasing that you sent a thank you note. And these are just good ways to figure out and to keep track of where you are in your search. Something else that I would consider is applying for multiple types of organizations. The current job market that we're in, especially for the tech industry, sometimes it takes longer to find the ideal position for you. And so I suggest keeping your mind open to other industries or other types of positions. And so what by that I mean, sometimes people want to focus on only large organizations like Google or Meta or Apple. And those are great organizations. It's absolutely wonderful to apply to them. But I also suggest looking at nonprofit organizations, medium-sized companies, startups, and considering roles adjacent to your main target that will help you meet some of the requirements and skill sets. Ultimately, you are looking not just for that first job, but to get you connected to the next job that you're going to have. You are looking to make career moves. And so consider roles, if you're looking for internships, for example, think about the network that you want to create with your colleagues, with people in the industry. Think about skills, experiences, coding languages, technology, skill sets that you want to get, and consider roles that can get you to those skills, whether they're the actual job description you were looking for or not. I also suggest setting goals for yourself each week to help you feel accomplished and personalizing the applications based on the industry. So that's what that should say, is personalize the applications based on the position and industry. And so, for example, if you're writing a cover letter, try to find the name of the hiring manager or the name of the recruiter so that you can say, "Dear Mr. or Ms. or Dr. so-and-so." Show them that you've done the work and that you're genuinely interested in the position that is available. So, an important question that I am often asked by international students specifically is, how do I find companies that sponsor? And so here are a lot of great resources. I'm happy to share these slides and this presentation, but I would also suggest, if you would like, making a screenshot of this. So the job search platform that we use here at NYU is called Handshake. That is the job search platform where employers post positions, we schedule appointments on Handshake, we advertise our events on Handshake, there's information for international students. And the one that I really want to focus on, though, is InterStride. My graduate assistants and students always joke that it seems like I work for InterStride, because I am a very big advocate of InterStride, specifically for international students. InterStride is a portal. It's an interactive portal that is available for NYU students for free for the students. And it supports students and alumni in their job and internship search and abroad. Through InterStride, first, you can attend webinars on things such as better understanding the U.S. job search, differences in organizations within the United States. They host webinars on different visa types, or how to educate and explain things like OPT and CPT to employers who may not have that knowledge or may not understand. And something excellent about InterStride is that students can search. Something that I always tell students is that part of applying for the jobs and internships is getting your information out there, getting your name out there, getting your resume out there, applying to as many positions that make sense for you as possible. But within that, you want to make sure that you are applying for positions that actually sponsor or are willing to accept OPT and CPT. And that is where InterStride comes in. InterStride can help you search for companies that are capped exempt. So they don't have to take part in the lottery. They're exempt from having a certain number of sponsorships each year. They can show you the top 1,000 companies and organizations that have sponsored in the last year within the types of positions that you're looking for. You can even narrow it down and get more specific to focus on the top 500 companies and organizations. And so if you're looking at the top 1,000, that's where the advice that I gave you before about expanding your job search to focus on smaller companies or medium-sized companies or startups can be helpful. But if you're looking at the top 500, if that is specifically for students who might be targeting larger organizations. And so if, for example, you typed in machine learning intern in the New York City metro area, all of the positions that are illustrated for you are only positions that have sponsored in the last year. And so they have an understanding of OPT and CPT, and they're willing to sponsor. You can even actually see how many people they sponsored last year, which, I think is really exciting because it gives you a better idea of how familiar and how experienced they are with the sponsorship process. One last great thing that InterStride has that is available for students is a networking option similar to LinkedIn or similar to Handshake. You can actually network with other students across the United States and employers in the country to see what type of positions to keep growing that network. And so now we will transition to talking a bit about networking. Something that I will say is that frequently I meet with students, and sometimes a student will come to me 5 times in a month wanting to keep working on their resume and perfecting their resume. And your resume is a major marketing tool for you. It is an incredibly important part of the job search. Having your materials be accurate and be targeted to the positions that you're applying for is incredibly important. But something to remember is that your resume is only one component of the job search. Another major component of the job search is networking. There was a poll done a few years ago, I think it was maybe 6 or 7 years ago, that showed that somewhere between 50 to 60% of all jobs are filled through networking. And so that is people who know people in the company, people who have made connections. And while that may seem a bit intimidating and overwhelming, there are many, many ways for you to network during your time in school. And so some things that you'll want to focus on during the networking process is developing networking goals. So for example, that might be, I'm going to have 4 informational interviews each month, and we'll talk briefly about what informational interviews are. Or I will attend 1 major professional development conference each year. So develop networking goals based on what is realistic for you and your schedule, and what's realistic for the next part, which is an important part of the networking process is understanding your networking style. You'll also want to know when and where to network, and importantly, networking in a variety of ways. Networking has to go beyond just sending cold emails on LinkedIn or only attending career fairs. You want to try to network in as many ways as possible. And so I'm actually going to go back for a moment to understanding your networking style, because I meet with so many students who tell me, I'm overwhelmed by networking. I don't know how to just get in there and network. And so something I always say to them is, how have you in the past developed other relationships in your life with friends at school or with colleagues, with professors, with supervisors that you've had in the past? They all started with networking, because the essential definition of networking is developing relationships organically over time. And part of that is, when we're talking about networking officially, we're talking about developing those relationships to help you professionally, developing professional relationships. But you can learn from how you've networked successfully in the past. Maybe you're someone who only has a small amount of friends. Maybe quality matters more to you than quantity. And so what that means is targeting specific companies and organizations that you're really passionate about and working to connect with a few people there. Maybe you're a very extroverted and outgoing person, and so attending various networking events each week might be the most helpful thing for you. And so it's figuring out what is your networking style and then putting it to use for you. And as I mentioned, another part is variety. So these are a few great ways to network. Attending career and networking fairs can be really important. Sometimes employers only come to career fairs because not many times they have positions and jobs available, but sometimes they're coming just to network because they know positions will become available in the future. So attending employer events at a university, events hosted by things like the Tandon Career Hub or the Wasserman Center can be very helpful. In New York City, there are a lot of great events. There's a weekly newsletter that goes out called Tech NYC. It's free for anyone to subscribe, and that is a great way to see what's going on within New York and actually get to meet people within the city. Another great way to network is online. Several students join hacking projects, hackathons, meetup groups, online and virtual networking programs. Here at NYU, we have something called VIPs, which are vertically integrated projects. These are projects that allow you to network with your colleagues, your professors, and sometimes even industry partners, and to be able to complete a project that you can then put on your resume. And also internships and on-campus jobs. Many employers host internships because they're hoping that those internships will eventually turn into full-time jobs. So those are also great ways to network. So you may have heard, another thing that you may have heard about networking is something called elevator pitches. So an elevator pitch is a brief persuasive speech that's used to spark interest in you. And so it was created based on the idea that if you were on the 10th floor headed to the first floor with a hiring manager, that by the time you got to the bottom floor, you could give a quick, short speech on who you are and what you do. Elevator speeches can be really helpful because it helps you to succinctly describe the types of positions you're looking for, the types of expertise you have. But I would say something to be aware of with elevator speeches is that I have seen students walk up to employers at career fairs and the employer says, "How are you doing today?" And they immediately say, "Hi, I'm Candace. I'm the director of the Tandon Career Hub at NYU." And, it's going back to what I said originally about networking is that it needs to be organic. And so you don't want to have an elevator speech memorized that you just recite for anyone. You want it to feel a bit more natural than that. And so I would suggest instead of having a memorized speech, keep in mind 3 to 4 main points that you'd like to talk about when you're able to meet with employers. Something that a lot of people do is conduct informational interviews. I would also recommend taking a screenshot of this. Typically with students, we have a program called the Career Exploration Series here at the Tandon Career Hub. And every other Tuesday, we have a virtual series where we invite employers to come in who are Tandon alumni who speak about their own career paths. And these employers are absolutely open and willing to meet with you later to host informational interviews. And so when hosting those informational interviews, whether you meet the employers through an event on campus or you meet the employers through a cold email on LinkedIn, you want to make sure that you have questions that show a genuine interest in their work. And, I would say that the biggest mistake I see people make when it comes to informational interviews is immediately saying, "Do you have any jobs open? Do you know who the hiring manager is? Can you help me get a job? Can you write a referral for me?" You want to make it feel more reciprocal. And so you want to show interest in their career path. And, some students say, "Well, if I conduct an informational interview, I have nothing to offer them." But that's not true. You're the newest generation and the newest voice of the STEM industry. They are always looking to learn more from your generation. And so please remember that you do have so much to share with them. And so, as I mentioned, thinking about your networking style, you may want to think about whether or not you're more introverted or more extroverted. If you prefer, again, smaller, a smaller amount of more in-depth relationships, if you have the capability to attend conferences, how much capacity do you have to join student organizations and take part in projects? And what does it look like for you when you're having those conversations with people? And how can you take your networking style and leverage it to make your networking experience as successful as possible? And so here are a few quick pro tips. Remember that a relationship developed out of networking is a relationship with a human. So just know it takes time, just like building any other relationship does. That's why it's important to begin networking as soon as you get to the university. Stay in contact with your network via follow-up. Some students have asked me, how do I continue following up? And so I would say, reach out, ask, how are you doing? How's that project at work that you mentioned going? Let them know how projects that you might have mentioned are going. Let them know how your student organization is going. Let them know how things are with you. Look for networking groups. Those could be groups online. Those could be groups at your university. Or if you don't see one that's an exact match for you, consider making your own, because there are probably other people out there who are also interested in learning more. And so, again, we'll talk a bit about working with the Tandon Career Hub. These are some of the services that we offer. We help students explore their majors and career paths. We help edit and write resumes, cover letters, LinkedIn, we review your LinkedIn. We help students with the job and internship search tips and strategy. We help you create and practice that elevator pitch that we spoke about. We help with mock interviews. We help with technical interviews. We help students develop long-term career goals that might include more education or leadership experiences. And we even help with things like salary negotiation once you have the position that you want. And so, with that, I'm going to stop, but please consider me a resource. Consider All Career Services a resource to you and a great way to help you as you navigate your own career journey.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Candice, for that. That was really insightful. We already have our chat flooded with questions. So we will do some Q&A, Candice, right after this, if you're okay. Next up, I'd like to invite Carrie. Carrie's going to talk to us for over the next 5-10 minutes a little bit about NYU Tandon. In order to meet Candice and to go into the Tandon Career Hub and to look at all those opportunities, you'll need to first get into NYU. And it is not a very complicated process. It is relatively simple. And Carrie is going to help us demystify studying at NYU Tandon School of Engineering. Over to you, Carrie.
Thanks, Shirang. Yes, so as Shirang pointed out when he did my introductions, I work in the admissions office here, so I'm really your resource to help navigate the process that is applying to graduate school, but specifically graduate school at Tandon, which is the engineering school here at NYU. Something to keep in mind if you are in the first few stages at the beginning here, trying to decide if you even want to go to graduate school, to keep in mind is as you're searching institutions, making sure that you are checking within those particular institutions exactly what they are looking for through their own application processes, because it will be different from institution to institution. So today, obviously, we're speaking about NYU. So let's jump in a little bit. This is just a quick overview of some things that we like to highlight for our students. To give a quick snapshot, I'm going to spend most of the presentation talking about the actual logistics and nitty-gritty of the application process, but I did want to just highlight a couple of things here for you. We do have other webinars that our institution does provide students that go really in depth on the institution, what type of research we're currently doing, all the exciting things that are happening. So if you're more interested in hearing about that, definitely look into that. We would love for you to join one of those. But just to give you a general idea here, we do have 31 graduate degree programs that are offered across 11 different academic departments. Those include master's and PhD programs. You can see in the bottom right-hand corner just a highlight of some of the different departments that we have. Within those departments, we have additional programs. So these are just sort of like high-level topics, but you can see on our website in depth all the different programs that we offer. Our institution, we're very proud of what we're doing and the investment that's currently happening here at Tandon. There is a lot of research investment that's happening, a lot of investment into our facilities over the next couple of years. We're going to have a lot of improvements to our laboratories, student facilities, things like that. There's also been additional positions for the institution around our deans and supporting tech research and things, and bringing in great international minds into the institution. So a lot of exciting things happening here for us. So hopefully you would be excited to participate in that if you are interested in engineering. So let's talk a little bit about what it would mean to apply to NYU Tandon and how you would go about doing that. So first and foremost, with any application process, it's really important to know the deadlines in which your application is due. So that way you can create yourself a timeline to work back from that deadline of all of the things that you need to get accomplished and done within that time frame. So we do have a couple of different intakes. We do have a spring intake, which starts in January. So I know it says spring, January is winter. That can get confusing sometimes to students, but it does start in January. If you would like to apply for that, the intake for spring, you would need to submit your application by November 1st. Do keep in mind there are a few programs that do not do spring intakes. You can find that information on our website. For all other students that are interested in applying for our fall intake, there's a few things that you need to know. For PhD programs, all PhD programs only do a fall intake. So it's important to note that if that's what you're looking for, you can only apply for fall. And PhDs only have one deadline, which is December 1st. So if you're thinking about that, you need to make sure your application gets in by that time. If you are a master's student or interested in a master's program, there are a couple of options for you. So we do have what we call our priority consideration. This is not an early action deadline. You may hear that terminology from other institutions. Early action is usually a binding contract saying that if you apply by the early deadline and you get admitted, you must attend. That is not what our priority deadline is. That's why we call it priority instead of early action. Priority deadline just means that you have an opportunity to have your application fully reviewed by the department earlier than we would normally have it reviewed by. A lot of students like to do this because most likely you're going to get your decision faster. So if you're applying to multiple institutions, it will give you your decision from us whether or not you were admitted to the program earlier on, and you can make your decisions earlier on as well. It also allows you to be a part of a competitive pool of students that are reviewed in that first round of students. However, we understand that not all students can get their materials in by December 1st, so we do have our final deadline for our master's programs, which is February 15th. I always recommend to students that if you think that your application is going to be better, if you have more time to put it together, wait for the February 15th deadline. It is not going to affect your ability to be reviewed for scholarship. I know students worry about that a lot. So really pick the deadline that works for you and makes the most sense for you. If you are doing an online program, so not planning on attending us here in New York, you have until July 1st to apply. Now that we know those deadlines, you can think about how can I make the requirements and get all of my application materials together prior to the deadline. So our application is fully online. There is no paper applications anymore. So you will need to create an account online. There you will track your application. You'll get a checklist of all the additional materials that we'll talk about here today that you will need to supplement with the online application. So in addition to those online application materials that are requested, you'll have other things you'll need to submit. Typically, it is $90 to submit your application, but that will be waived since you're attending today's session. You will receive an email with this information for the waiver. So keep an eye out for that. So the first thing that you'll need to do outside of that online application is to provide transcripts for us. So this includes all previously attended institutions outside of high school. So anything within higher education through your bachelor's degree, we will need to have that. We recommend that you submit official transcripts. That means directly from your institution's registrar's office to us, as well as any proof of degree if you have already completed your bachelor's degree, to be sent to us directly. However, at the time of application, you can upload copies. So if you have a version of it that's been sent to you, you can scan that yourself and upload it into the application for review purposes only. But do keep in mind, if you are admitted into the program, you will need to provide official transcripts before you're allowed to start your actual classes. So it's really up to you on which version of those transcripts and the proof of degree that you would like to submit. Of course, if you're currently still studying, you may not actually be fully completed with your program. That is okay. Submit all of the transcripts up until the most completed semester or term that you have completed. Then we will request your final semesters and your proof of degree once you graduate before you attend. In addition to that, there are some other things, including test scores that we will need from you. The GRE is actually optional for all master's programs. There's only a few PhD programs that actually require the GRE. So you do not need to take the GRE if you were not planning on doing so. Students a lot of times have questions around this. How do I know if I should submit the GRE? Does it help me? Most students, again, because it's optional, it's not a part of our hard requirements, so it is not necessary for you to submit the GRE. However, if you feel like other aspects of your application may be lacking, submitting the GRE could help boost your application in other respects. So for example, maybe your GPA is a little bit lower than you would like it to be, but you have excellent scores within your GRE, specifically within the quantitative portion of the exam, because that is something that our faculty are looking at a little bit more strongly than, say, the verbal portion. So if you have really strong scores within that portion of the GRE, that could be something that's worth your while to submit to help supplement maybe another weaker portion of your application. It does not guarantee you that you're going to be admitted if you just submit GRE scores. It doesn't give you just brownie points for submitting GRE scores. What I tell students is it needs to be strategic of why you submit them. I would not submit scores that are not good scores, as they're going to be reviewed, and that could negatively impact your application. Outside of the GRE, we do require proof of English proficiency. The way that we determine English proficiency is through testing. So you do need to provide some sort of English language test score to us. Officially from your testing center, have those scores directly sent to us. So that could be the TOEFL, IELTS, the Cambridge exam, PTE. We also take Duolingo, which has been a really helpful option for students over the last few years when they're not able to get other testing options. Again, all of those scores for any test do need to be sent to us directly from the testing agency and won't be considered accepted unless we have those sent in. In addition to the test scores, we also will require you to upload a resume or a CV detailing any experiences that you have, so be sure to fill that out. We will also, within the online application, provide you with a few essay prompts that you will need to answer. There are 2 prompts. With those prompts, you can have up to 1 page per prompt to respond to those prompts, but you do not have to do 2 full pages if you do not want. In response to that, you can do a half a page for each response. The essays, again, what you will need to do is respond to the question that's being asked of you. This is not you just coming up with a random essay and submitting it. There is a prompt that you must respond to directly. So be sure that you are looking at that when you're in the online application, preparing your response as well, and then uploading those responses into the application. You will also need to submit recommendations. So what I would recommend for you is to be in touch with faculty members, or if you are currently no longer studying, if you've had employers that you're very close with, that you can contact for them to provide a recommendation for you and tell us why they believe that you would be an excellent candidate to join any of our master's or PhD programs. What I recommend to students is make sure that you know the person that you're contacting so that they can actually talk about you, maybe talk about something that you've done that's been really great, any adversity that you've overcome, things like that are always great to highlight. We recommend that you provide us the minimum 2 recommenders, but you can provide a third if that's something that you would like to do. But keep in mind, your application only requires 2. And most students will have 2 recommendation forms. Again, these recommendation forms are mandatory letters that are written from your recommender. What happens is when you go into the online application form, you put in your recommender's contact information. And what happens is then our system will automatically send them a form to fill out. That form automatically gets sent back to us. If the faculty member would like to add an additional letter, they can do that on top of the form, but the forms are what is mandatory. So again, please make sure that you notify your faculty members of this. And if they do insist on also completing a letter, it needs to be on official letterhead from the institution that they work for. And all of the email addresses that you provide us for your recommenders need to be professional email addresses. And what we mean by that is not their personal information. So their university email address or their company's email address, that's what we need to have in the system so that we know it's coming directly from them and it is not something that could possibly be fraudulent. So please make sure that you are communicating that information to your recommenders. And then lastly, there may be additional supporting materials that your particular program may request for information. So that may be academic papers or projects or research. You can add some of this information in supplemental materials if you would like, but it's not required. However, in certain programs, there are things like portfolios that you may be asked to provide. An interview may be requested of you, but it's usually just for our PhD candidates and it's on a case-by-case basis. So on the master's level, you won't have to worry about that. But it's really essential that you do go to our website to check out the complete list of our requirements. You can see the link there on the page. The last thing I'll talk about just really briefly, because I did see some questions in the chat about this, and I'm sure in the Q&A after this, we'll talk about this as well, but scholarships. So something to keep in mind as sort of a general FYI for those of you that are interested in applying to graduate level programs is, again, scholarships will vary from school to school. At NYU, PhD programs are most often fully funded. So if you are applying to a PhD program, you most likely will have full funding in some capacity, whether that's through scholarships, TA positions, research positions, things like that, and a combination of them. So keep that in mind. At the master's level, we do not provide full funding, but there is opportunity for scholarship. Every student who is admitted at the master's level to NYU Tandon will be automatically reviewed for what we call merit-based scholarship. In order to receive a merit-based scholarship, you do need to, it's basically we look at your GPA and your GRE scores if that is something that is required for your program. And then we base your allocation of scholarship on your academic merit, how well you did. The better you do, the more likely you are to get scholarship. Scholarship typically ranges somewhere between $3,000 and $12,000 for students that do receive it. Again, not everyone will receive it. But again, if you have more questions about funding options, additional financial opportunities for you, you can scan the QR code on the screen, and it'll take you to our website with a little bit more information about that. But just keep in mind, this is an automatic process. You don't have to submit a scholarship application separately for this review for those scholarships. Again, this is just a quick snapshot of everything I've talked about here today in regards to what's required, our scholarships, and our deadlines. So if you want to take a screen grab of that, you can do so. And that is all I have. I'm going to hand it back over to Sharang so we can do the Q&A. Again, before they jump back in, I'll just say, before we go into the Q&A, if you have any questions for me at the admissions office, you can contact us here. We're more than happy to ask or answer your questions that you may have. But of course, we will do some here as well.
All right. Hi, everyone. Sharang is going to be joining in shortly. Thank you so much, Carrie, for your presentation. It was very wonderful uh, to get that information about NYU, and a lot of questions are pouring in. So while I wait for Sharang, to everyone in the audience, my name is Sabahat Hurzuk, and I'm an associate director with Seed Global Education. And quite a few questions have come up in the Q&A window as well as in the chat option. Uh, so I'm going to start with my first question, which is from Akshal, who wants to know that if he's looking to apply for an MS in data science and with the GRE being optional, would it affect his application somehow if he feels that the other factors in his profile are not strong enough?
Yes, so as I mentioned in the presentation, your GRE score, if you feel like something is lacking in your application, if you have excellent GRE scores, it can help boost your application. However, as I mentioned, it could have the opposite effect. If you feel like you have a really great application and your GRE scores are so-so, then it's really not necessary to submit those GRE scores. You don't want to hurt your application by submitting them. You're not going to get automatic points for just submitting it. You need to have good scores. So if you think that you're lacking in some areas and you have an excellent GRE score, yes, that could be a tactic to help improve your overall profile. Oh, Sabat, you're muted.
I'm so sorry. So just to sort of summarize that for everyone who's asked questions about their profile, about the GRE option, if you feel that your GRE is not strong enough, of course, as Carrie mentioned, don't submit it. But if you feel it's something that is really going to help your profile stand out, yes, go ahead with that. Okay, great. The next question is for Mehdi, who wants to know that, we heard a lot about, I'm going to broaden this question a little bit, but we do hear a lot about the job recession, no jobs, the job market in the US being affected. What are the chances of any student who is currently pursuing a master's or is about to pursue a master's to get the right sort of job once they complete their graduation? And Sharon is back with that. Over to you, Sharon. But
Sorry,
Candice, if you
guys.
could take up that one.
Please go ahead, Candice.
Sure. Yes, that's a great question, and it is one that we are asked frequently, especially at things like new student orientation or the Summer Career Academy that was on Carrie's slides earlier. And, something that I would strongly suggest that you do is for any school, whether it's Tandon or any school, is look at their student outcomes. This may also be called at certain places the first destination survey. And so if you search online for NYU Tandon Life Beyond the Square or NYU Tandon Career Outcomes. If you go to the NYU Tandon Career Hub website, we have an area called Career Outcomes, and there you can see essentially what happens is that career services at NYU survey students about 6 months after graduation to ask where are you working? They ask questions about salary, work location, what kind of company that you're working at. And there's even questions, and you can see the responses on how long did it take you to get the position? Did you accept your position before graduation? Did you accept it within 3 months of graduation? Did you accept it within 6 months of graduation? And if I'm not mistaken, somewhere between 95 to 96% of students have a job, and typically a job within their industry within 3 months of graduation. I think that maybe it's more than 90%, somewhere around 92% of students have a job by the time that they graduate. And so those are things that, those are questions that are really important that I would encourage you to ask no matter what organization or what school that you're applying to, is what are your outcome rates? And so those rates are specifically given to us by students who have recently graduated. And so, that they're accurate. And so, yes, I would say, obviously, this isn't I've worked in tech and engineering career services for a long time. This is one of the more difficult times that I've seen, but there are certainly, 96% of students are getting a job within 3 months of graduation. And so, I would say part of it is just, as we were talking about earlier, being organized, being focused, making sure that your materials are in order, and making sure that you're networking.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for that, Candice. I think that was very well answered about the overall market scenario as well, if I'd like to call it. Next up, Carrie, I think within the scholarship and the financial aid section, you spoke about something around assistantships and part-time jobs. Could you throw some light on what percentage of master students, not PhD, but what percentage of master students actually get these particular roles? How can they apply for these roles, and what are some of the tuition fee discounts or scholarships, etc., that they get if they do an assistantship or certain part-time jobs?
Yeah, so, well, first of all, I don't have the statistic on that of how many students. I don't know if Candace has that information, but I don't have that information, but I can elaborate a little bit more on that. Candace, I didn't know if you were going to say something. Go ahead. No, you don't have it as well. Okay. What I will say is that it can be competitive, but we do have quite a few students that do decide to do assistantships in some capacity. At NYU, it's a little bit different than other institutions. So it's important for you to understand the distinctions between the abilities to have on-campus employment. Research assistantships or RA positions and TA positions or teaching assistant positions at Tandon typically go to PhD students only, and it is a part of their funding package. So when you are admitted into a PhD program, again, you'll see the types of scholarships that you're offered, as well as any positions that you would be given on campus to sort of supplement, any day-to-day expenses that you may have. Outside of that, we do also have something called GA positions, which are graduate assistantships. Those are more of your standard on-campus positions that are open for anybody to apply to. So if you're a master's student and you're looking to sort of supplement your day-to-day expenses, you would like to have an additional income, we do have these online jobs that you can apply, or these on-campus jobs that you can apply to. Those would be something that become available in the fall, right before you start your on-campus employment or come to study. So you can look for those through Handshake, which I know Candace mentioned, which is one of our platforms for those jobs, and you can apply to them. As I mentioned, they are competitive, but they are great jobs if you're able to secure one. You can work up to 20 hours a week. And I believe, I can't remember the hourly pay now, but I know it's over $20 an hour. It's a pretty good paying job. And you do get some benefits, including, if you need to take sick time, things like that. So there's a great union that you can be a part of here on campus that helps students. But again, that would be something that is money that gets paid to you, and you can allocate that however you would like. So if that's towards your personal expenses, or if you want to use that to help make payments towards your tuition, you can do so.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for that, Carrie. Just, as we were talking about funding and scholarships, I've put a message on the group, which are the exclusive seat scholarships. If you are applying for NYU Tandon, you could apply to the seat scholarship fund and scholarships that are exclusively for candidates that have attended an event like this. So 234 of you are in this meeting, and if you are interested to apply, you can apply to the NYU Tandon scholarships. There are 5 scholarships worth $20,000. These scholarships are not listed on the NYU financial aid website, but listed on the Seed Global Education Scholarship Fund. So I do encourage you, if you are applying for fall 25 rather, you should be able to apply to these scholarships. 5 scholarships worth $20,000. Carrie, I'm going to stick with you to try and understand a little bit around timelines, right? I know you mentioned the final deadline, and you also mentioned the international students recommended deadline. Could you again throw some light on until how late can students apply to the program for a master's program. And Freda has asked this question: can an undergraduate student apply for master's program at NYU before graduation? And if offered a scholarship, will it be on hold until you complete your undergrad? Could you throw some light on if you don't have a final undergraduate degree, could you still apply?
Yes. So again, so our deadlines are for master's programs are December 1st or February 15th. Either option is fine for international or domestic students. There is no difference for which deadline that you decide to apply to. What I recommend to students is apply to the deadline that makes the most sense for you. And if you want your application to be reviewed by faculty in that first round, then do the December 1st deadline. But if your application is going to be better and more put together and not rushed, or there's something that you're completing in the fall term that will really boost your profile or boost your GPA, wait until that February 15th deadline. But to answer the question about can you apply while you're still pursuing your undergraduate degree, yes, you must be in your final year of study of your undergraduate degree because you need to have completed your undergraduate degree or your bachelor's degree equivalent prior to starting your master's degree program. You cannot begin your master's degree program if you've not completed your undergrad. But if your undergrad is going to be completed by the time you start in, say, September of 2025, then yes, you can do that. What you would need to do then is submit all of the transcripts that you have up to the point that you apply. So at this point, if you're applying for December 1st, you may not have your fall transcripts with your grades in them if you're applying and submitting your documents towards the end of November. That's okay. Submit everything you have up until that point. But once you're admitted, we will be requesting those documents. So you still will need to submit them, but it won't affect your decision. It also will not negatively impact your scholarship. Your scholarship, when issued to you, is your scholarship. Once you deposit and say that you're coming to the institution, that sort of locks that scholarship in for you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that, Carrie. We are actually running out of time. We've spent over an hour to actually discuss this. I'm going to give the panelists one chance to just try and talk to students about anything that we you feel that we might have missed out. Any more information you'd like to give about the Tandon Career Hub, about career opportunities for candidates after they complete their masters. Similarly, Carrie, I'll come to you later on, just for any final tips for any of the applicants for Fall 25. Candice, over to you to try and summarize a few things that we've discussed today.
Sure. I would say something to consider is, frequently when I meet with students, especially new and incoming students, something that they say is, I have nothing to put on my resume. I have nothing to share. And that is absolutely not true. Typically when we begin talking about extracurricular projects or projects or coding languages that you may have learned in your own time, or skills that you may have learned in your own time, or, certification programs that you've taken, there are many things that you actually have done. And so I would say, don't let the fear that you're not where you should be, or you're not where your classmates are, stop you from applying to the positions that you want, the on-campus positions that you want, the internships that you want, because wherever you end up, you were chosen to be there. You want to be there, they saw special things in you that they picked. And so always keep that in mind.
Thank you so much for that, Candice. I think that was very well summarized as to what students can expect there as well. Carrie, a little bit on a lot of things, a lot of questions are still there, and I do encourage Bismarck and a few unanswered questions. If you answer all questions, we'll be here for a while. So we don't want to do that. Each of you have specific questions. You can write to Carrie, you can write to NYU's admissions team, or to Candice, or to NYU's Career Hub as well, to understand a little bit about what they do and how they can help you out. But just a summary, Carrie, as to what we could learn, all candidates could take back from this session.
Yes. So as Sharang was mentioning, feel free. I know the application process is extensive. There's a lot of details. You want to take your time as you're going through this and make sure that you are putting effort into each portion of that application, and taking each portion seriously. So I know there's a lot of questions that are going to come from that. It's to be expected. So I'm going to pop into the chat again the contact information for the admissions office. So you have our email address. I also put in our website link again. The website will list again in depth all of the requirements for the application. It will also provide you information on all of our programs. So it's important that when you're thinking about applying to our programs, understanding what those programs are, what those class requirements are going to be, so you can sort of talk to within your application to the faculty why this program is a good fit for you, why you want to be a part of that program, and being able to articulate that is going to be something that's really important outside of, you providing your transcripts, your resume, your scores, being able to articulate to faculty when they review your profile why you're interested, why you could be an asset to this program is really going to be something that's beneficial. But again, of course, feel free to reach out to our office at any point in time. We are here to help you through this process. It's stressful. We understand that. We want to help navigate you through the process to the best of your ability. You can contact us via email or phone. I've popped the email into the chat, but we also have things like the events I was mentioning before, which are other virtual opportunities like this that are just for the admissions questions. So we actually allot almost an hour's worth of time for you to ask those questions. So if you didn't get those answered here today, want to come and attend one of those events, you can, or you can pop us an email and we'll get back to you within 24 to 48 hours for that as well. So hopefully this gave you a general idea and got you excited. We'd be happy to help you through this process.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Carrie. Thank you so much, Candice. Carrie is going to be in India in by this weekend, actually. And then in the start of the year, she will be in Nigeria and Ghana itself. If not Carrie, then maybe her colleague will be traveling. But there is NYU's visit to India. Candice is always approachable, available, and you can reach out to her if you have any questions. I thank each and every one of you. There are 204 of you still here. So thank you so much for spending the last hour and a few minutes with us, and a big thank you for Carrie and Candice. I know there were some unanswered questions, but you could reach out and they will surely respond. Do remember to also apply to the Seed Scholarship Fund if you're looking to apply for the fall 2024 intake for a master's program. You should try and make the most of these opportunities that are offered. Thank you so much once again. Wish you a wonderful day ahead, Carrie and Candice. To one in India, good night. And for the ones in West Africa, have a nice rest of the day too. Thank you so much. Goodbye and take care.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.